Oops.
Like being at a heavy metal concert.
Man, that hits my hearing aid like somebody zapped me in the side of the head.
I don't even have my headsets on.
Dave's on his way.
We're already.
Okay. Alright, last time, I'm sorry, we just take this off, last time we had some comments. Submitted to us digitally, we had some comments on the floor. Dean took another swing at the document to incorporate some of those comments. Ira provided an update, what we call it? Analysis on the interference clause. Cities. Yeah, so the League of Cities provided some like guidelines or some outline on the or commentary on the interference clause, which was also shared, I believe. So that was part of the concern that a couple of councilors had to incorporate some of that language or soften that language in that document. Other than that, we were looking to council to provide additional comments based on what was there. The original document was provided, I believe, on Monday or Tuesday preceding the last time we got together. That was 3 weeks ago. 2 weeks after that, here we are with looking for additional comments or questions from the council on the local law or potential changes to the recommended changes to the local law.
We talked last time about public being informed. We were saying last Friday it was due, if I'm not mistaken from my notes. Where is that at? Where is the document for public?
Yeah, so because the document was just shared with council, we were waiting for more comments before we can really solidify a document that's shareable. That essentially will have very little changes to be made between now and the time it's adopted. And ideally, the time it's approved for adoption on the 1st of August. So we are looking at getting these final notes from you all, final comments and questions from you all, having another public hearing, ideally having another public gathering before we make an announcement of the public hearing to then finalize any language to the law. And then sharing that out more publicly, obviously. But obviously the concern from us is that we're sharing a document that's also in great fluctuation right now. That does not have a lot of we're still waiting on significant comments from you all, which we've had one meeting thus far, and we haven't had any notes or comments after that one meeting. So we want to get some additional changes made before we send out a more final draft.
And I'm sure you all met since then, as it was mentioned. We talked about, I'm gonna phrase it as January 29th, with changing the date of implementation of this. So the next mayor can decide when this starts. Where is that conversation at for you all? And has there been any changes on that or updates, moves?
The only changes was the clarification on the start of that. As you know, the recommendation was to start the process of hiring or the search early in the year of 2025 with an implementation of 2026. That has not changed other than just the explanation of the timeline. But again, from our perspective, we met just after that, the day after that first meeting that we had 2 weeks ago. We have not met since. We'll meet tomorrow to continue that conversation. But really, if there is a concern about the timeline, we're more than happy to make changes or alterations to it. I think one thing that we not concerned over, but kind of question is it just an open-ended if the vote to approve it by the voters, if the voters choose to adopt this, is this just an open-ended conversation for the next administration to implement whenever they feel like it, or is there some structured timeline for when it's expected to be implemented? I think that's the question that, again, flexible with the timeline, but we certainly want to make sure that there is some structure around when it happens. Whether the process starts in 2025 or starts in 2026, one way or the other. But I think at the end of the day, the whole goal is to implement if adopted, again, if the voters choose to vote, to adopt this, the idea is to implement this sooner than later, rather than having it drag on for another administration 4, 5, 6 years down the line.
I just want to be clear from our last time we met, and I know I said it then, but being crystal clear on my piece of it. I do not think there should be a strict piece for the next mayor coming in that it has to happen during that person's time frame. And this is why I'm phrasing it as January 2029 of instead of language of it must happen by X date 2025, implementation 2026, implementation by January 2026 makes sense to me, but have it by date instead of having it. So it's after their term potentially, so they could do it at the end of their term, somewhere in between their term. So before the next mayor, not the next one coming in, but the following mayor, there will be a city manager. This current major, this race they're running for, the race they signed up for, and I recognize publicly the candidates that are out there have said they're all in favor of it. It's different when it's a full-time job to a part-time job, like we're planning on by summer 2026. I think that's an important point, and it's one of the sticking points I have absolutely in this. I just want to be crystal clear on my point on that from the last meeting.
And I
If
agree.
you want to, like, again, we're more than happy to accept recommended language. If you want to draft something or send something over to us to recommend change of that language, please do, and we'll incorporate it back into certainly suggested back into the changes of the local law.
The timeline is a vital part of it, and I agree with Jake.
So you're looking for language that says they can do it during their term or they can wait to the end.
Basically, I know I wrote up notes at one point. I will find those notes and put those back in the document. But yeah, they could follow your timeline that you propose right now. Absolutely, up to the discretion of whoever wins. But they can also say, you know what, I want to be mayor for the 4 years that I'm signing up for, which is not possible right now under the current draft.
But wouldn't the council be in a position to say whether you want this now, 2 years, or at the end of the term? It's not the mayor's choice because you're the guys that are gonna have to make this decision. Not the mayor.
I'm gonna state publicly my opinion on all of this. First of all, I think that after doing this job for 6 years, I completely back having a city manager. But what is happening should be done with an official charter commission and not an advisory committee. Your advisory committee is not subject to open meetings law. Your meetings have not taken place in full view of the public as per open meetings law. So an advisory committee can be formed by the mayor, and it doesn't trigger the necessity of open meetings law unless the committee is comprised primarily of elected officials. So that is a hindrance for me, because when we fast forward to the end of the process, when the public is going to be called for, they're going to be given the notice of a public hearing. By the time the hearing happens, August 1st is our target date, so your target date. It will be too late at that point for the public to have any input on what they think could change, what they would like to see, because that night we will vote on whether or not to adopt a local law, which will then trigger it to go to a ballot referendum. We have to learn from the mistakes. The public does not like it when huge changes or opportunities are presented and they're not given any opportunity to chime in or give feedback or watch the process, to be engaged in the process. You're going to ask us to approve a law that we did not write. We are not on that committee. Send it forward as a ballot referendum when we were not part of the process. This is a meeting for us to engage in a dialogue, but we're not collaborating on the whole process. I see the necessity for an actual charter commission that would be subject to open meetings law, public engagement, public feedback, and get whole community buy-in, because we're squandering an opportunity here. We run the risk of turning off anybody who would be on board with going towards a city manager, who will go to the They'll go to the ballot box in November and go, no. And then we've squandered another opportunity. We need the public to be more engaged, but by the time we ask them to engage in it, it will be too late. We won't be able to take their feedback. They will come in, they will either be 100% for it or they'll be angry at us. But whatever their feedback is, it's too late. That's not good government. This is government in the dark. And I don't agree with the process. So I have to say that publicly because I think that a city manager role is actually good for the city, but it's got to be done the right way through a charter commission. I think that there are sprawling issues inside departments, how the entire government's going to function. And that can't be done by us engaging in a document and having this kind of informal discussion and expect that we're going to get it right. Second objection I have is that it's currently an election year. And to make changes after an individual is elected is not, I don't think that's good government either. I don't think the process there is appropriate or fair to the election process because you're also disenfranchising anybody who would have considered running as a mayoral candidate if they thought that their job would actually be more policy or part-time. We're opening ourselves up for possible lawsuits because of that. There are sprawling issues with the process, and that is primarily my objection to this. I'm not going to engage in the document because what then is going to happen is we're going to be kind of put on the spot. Well, you put this in the document. Well, you said this, and you. And then if we don't vote to adopt it, then the finger pointing begins. So I want to be really clear right now about where I stand. I don't know how other councilors feel about it, but I think this is a squandered opportunity. And I think it should be done as a charter commission. I think it should have been done as a charter commission all along, but we weren't involved in the process. The mayor decided to create the advisory committee apart from us. So I just felt it would be important for me to voice where I am for the entire process and what you've done, because I don't intend in giving any feedback because I'm not going to own this document. I'm not going to own this process. And I think other councilors need to speak up and give their opinions as well, so that it's very clear where we all stand.
Right.
Why are you looking at me?
I want to reiterate a piece that what Councilor Gibbs just said too, and I started it with the engagement piece. I can't overemphasize that. I walked around today, most of the week actually, talking to neighbors and what? This is happening? And I understand there's an element of ignorance. I fully recognize that in the conversation, but we've not done our due diligence of saying this is even on the table. And that's where I started with the question of where are we at with in the information in just a simple, hey, are you okay with a public manager? A city manager? What is a city manager? There's an education campaign, and I feel like I've been beating that drum all the way through this. We just haven't done that. We're July 1st right now, and we've got to educate the community on what this is if we want this to pass, and we just haven't done that. It's not your fault. It's not our fault. But at some point in the process that we just haven't done that to get the public opinion and actually have a full-on engagement with our constituents and seeing where they're at with this. So I do agree with the public piece strongly.
And I agree that this is just, I guess time will tell if this is the best way to go about government for the city, having a city manager. But this is an election year for a mayor, and I just don't believe it's the right year to put this forward. I think maybe revisiting it next year, but I just don't think that this is the year to try to even get it on the ballot. That's just the way I feel about it.
Stating for myself. If it is clear that there's not support in the council to get this on the ballot, the council should take action and towards creating a commission. Especially if you feel like the basic premise of a city manager is the right way to go, or at least is a possible way to go. take the steps. Don't just put it off until after the election or sometime next year. Take an active step and go through the process of creating a commission. You know, I do think that one of the things that can bog down the commission perhaps. Councilor Gibbs, one of the things we were saying was about issues with the different departments in the city. There are issues that won't be able to be corrected, or actually, if we try to correct issues that would necessitate a city manager before there's a city manager. And you really get bogged down in the weeds. I mean, to some extent, you need a city manager to address some of the specific issues I think that you were talking about.
No, that's not what I'm talking.
Oh, all right, well, but I do think that, you know, if you could, a commission could get bogged down in the mini title of action of every nook and cranny of how the manager is going to work. Some of that by necessity will have to happen, I think. In the process of creating essentially the job description, right, which would not be created until, you know, until after the general idea of the city manager is put on the ballot. But like I said, I think the important thing is that because it seems to me that most people who have been paying attention are in fact in favor, or at least see the benefit to having a city manager type government. And if that's the case, you need to take positive steps in that direction. Now, if this is not the correct or the correct step that is in your opinions of in the opinions of the council, and if you feel that it is not going to be beneficial to actually passing through a referendum, I can understand that viewpoint, but let's take positive steps going forward to get this thing working. The commission, the previous commission, the other commission that created most of the document that we've been talking was a commission, it was an open process. It failed, it failed. It did go on the referendum, right, and it failed, correct? But that document that we're pretty much working from was developed through a commission process. So, I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why, again, speaking for myself, that's why I guess is one of the reasons why we went with an advisory committee this time, as it was more of an amendment to an existing commission process. But let's take positive steps. Let's not just put it off until, you know, if we put it off till next year when there's a mayor in place, then we'll want to put it off until the next mayoral election. It'll keep getting pushed down the road, which isn't going to help the city at all. And I hope that.
That's kind of the way I feel about it. I don't see that there's any, the referendum isn't going to be until November, correct? The vote?
Right.
I think that's plenty of time for people to become educated on the subject. I don't think that there's, I think we're shortchanging people's attention spans and their ability to look at an issue and come to a conclusion based on it. And I've got, you know, I've got nothing wrong with what's being said as far as the duties that the manager is going to have. And so I don't see, you know, stalling this as being productive. That's what makes sense.
I'm not saying that we should stall anything. And I'm still green, obviously, only a year and a half. And somebody once said, you don't learn anything until you've been in at least 2 years. And I didn't know the difference between having a commission looking at this and not having a commission. I didn't know the benefits until I started asking and looking into it. And what I tried to say last meeting in blue, because I just don't speak well, we didn't know that much from day one. We didn't know anything that you guys were bringing. Nothing was brought to us until 2 weeks before we met last time. And that's the first time we had looked at it. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. Did we have it before? I don't remember seeing it before. So I'm not saying let's not, but I don't like the way that it looks right now. I just don't. So will the commission fix that? Will the commission make that better? If so, then that's what we need to do. I'm not saying, okay, we need to wait for the next 4 years when this mayor is gone. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I want to do anyway. So I think we need to do, like Kim said, we need to do what needs to be done to do this with a commission. If that's what we want to do, then that's what needs to be done. We can't just sit here and say, okay, that's what we want to do, and then we don't do anything. It needs to be done. I don't know how. If somebody wants to teach me, then bring it on.
I would concur that postponing it, understanding the concerns about educating the public and getting public up to speed on
they
particular
need to
things,
be done.
understood. This has been an active document or a working document from the past, so this is not a brand new document. Some of the people who have been participating in this over years or who have had conversations about city manager also understood the nuances of this document back from 2015, 2016 was created. Again, it was put out that this advisory committee was being created and we heard no feedback on approach, process, or engagement. We did have an active member of the council sitting on and as recently as 2 months back or a month and a half ago. So there was council involvement, understandably, when it comes to the public education piece, or sort of stepping back when it comes to the piece that we did for the advisory piece was simply updating the document for language, updating the document for current standards, clarifying some things that may have been missed from the past or past work that was done. There was not a wholesale change or even a wholesale recommended change to the document that would have necessitated a full-on charter commission, which is why none was created. Understandably, to Councilor Moore's point last time, changes that were made to the charter from that process that was done, the whole charter commission, there should be a charter commission created to review the wholesale work that was done to the charter. But for this is not that. This is not the wholesale change that may be necessary to review those changes that were done in 2015 to catch some of that stuff up or to refine some of that was done. This piece simply is a separation of duties, a separation of power between the legislative body and the executive body of the city government. Simply put, a city manager installed to manage the operations of this organization, and a mayor to manage the legislative or the political arm of this government. So, look, we came back last week or 2 weeks back, asked for a review, asked for questions. This is the first time we're hearing this comment, so we're kind of hands are somewhat tied in that sense of waiting for some direction from the council on how to proceed. Furthermore, when it does come to the next mayoral candidate or the next mayoral campaign, we will always be in a cycle of either an existing mayor that's looking to change their position or an existing mayor looking to change the position of the incoming mayor. It's always going to be the case.
I agree. I just don't think we should keep punting. If there's changes in language to be made, then let's just make those changes.
I think that's, oh, sorry.
Right, well, go ahead.
I think it's more than just changing language. I mean, if you're going to pay a city manager what they're worth, then there needs to be change in the mayoral duties. I see their document as having far too many duties and responsibilities for a $25,000 a year job.
Okay, so then what
Hold on, let me
else?
finish. And I think that the operations of departments will need to change with the city manager. I don't see that being addressed either. And I could list multiple
Well, then let's do that.
examples. That is not the job of the that is the job of the clerk commission that we sit down and take the public review For both August third, the Republic. And it'll go if it passes the other board. And if they are not. A lot of this is happening, right? And they go, no. Then the public is still not a villain, if they don't and they say, no. And most people do. So the public by fixing through the process without doing in October of 2021, we had a meeting, secretary there and and what changed, how do we change the we were going to make minor language, you could do that by local law. If you're going to make substantive changes, then it would be a charter commission. This is substantive. It isn't just taking a 2015 document and saying, well, we're going to edit this language and edit that. You're changing government and you're changing the way this city has been run. There are going to be a lot of people who are very attached to the idea of a mayor. They haven't been here. They're not involved in the process. So I don't want to see this die again because the public is turned against it. I want to see a city manager go through, but I want to see it done right. And there's way too much work to be done to be in the hands of an advisory committee that's meeting and they're not doing their work in the public. It's not good government, and that's why I can't support it.
Okay,
And I
so what's your
agree.
solution then? What do you want to do?
I would like to see a charter commission formed, but if we form a charter commission, then I agree with Jacob, that charter commission would have to make recommendations for it to be changed. Next administration can't change the incoming mayor's job when that person was running thinking they were going to be a full-time mayor. So I think a charter commission formed to do the work properly in full view of the public with public feedback. And to keep the public engaged with a better timeline for it to be, if I were going to do it, I would say a 2026 vote. 2027 recruit for city manager. And then in 2028, that would be our next election, we would know who we're voting into office, what those job responsibilities would be. I'm not opposed to having a charter commission. I don't agree with this, and the public won't either.
Well, how come when this was formed way back when, you didn't say that?
We weren't involved in this. This was the
We knew
mayor's
that this was
commission.
happening.
We knew it was the mayor's commission, but the mayor can having a.
Updates, we didn't even know anything.
No, we weren't given any updates, no information, and the mayor can have any advisory committee he wants. So we weren't involved in the process.
But you knew that the process was beginning. Why didn't we say at that point that we wanted to have a charter?
Why is it on us? It's not our advisory committee, it's the mayor's
That's-
advisory committee. And I asked the mayor for an update in March, and he said, we'll have one to you by April, and we didn't get it.
What is the process for forming a commission?
I don't know.
That's what I said, somebody.
Just a
knows.
couple comments, so there is a white paper that anyone can find, put out by the New York State government. That lays out, I did summarize that in a memo to the mayor and this body, just laying out, and Councilor Avery laying out some of those options. I can't sit here today, quote a chapter and verse, but I do want to clarify or respond to Councilor Good's comment. I don't want to be boxed in by your recollection of any advice that I made in the past. I do know sitting here today that there are various ways to change the charter. One way is a charter commission. I do know a mayor can appoint a charter commission. I believe a charter commission can also be formed by referendum. Or by voter initiated petition.
Mhm.
And there may be a way for the common council to form a charter commission by local law. There's other ways to modify the charter. One of them is being simply by local law. In this case, with the context that we have where a charter commission was formed in 2015, that was a holistic overview changing the entire charter document, from beginning to end. In this case, it did not make sense to start over because that document has since been modernized. And rather, it made a lot more sense for numerous reasons, efficiency and, pragmatism being top of that list, to leapfrog, to take the work that was done and focus on the actual issue du jour, which was, is the city manager appropriate? So that language was created. We're able to efficiently go to that next step, which was clean up, modify that language and present it to the council. So there are legally numerous ways to change the charter. Charter commission being the norm when you're starting from scratch, but in this case, we weren't starting from scratch, we're starting from a several-year-old revised charter, and therefore, my advice at the beginning was jump to the chase. Let's go right to the city manager question, which is what's presented today.
Talking about changing the entire city government, and that was what you said. I remember it very vividly.
Again, I don't want to have a disagreement to that extent.
I think I've made it myself very clear about where I stand. I think that a charter commission should be formed to do it, the whole process correctly, looking at how having a city manager will impact the day-to-day operations of the government, individual departments. I think the job responsibilities of the city manager and the mayor need to be, I think they need to be more balanced out. For a $25,000 reader job, that's a lot of work for a mayor, the way that you have it. And that's where I stand. I mean, I don't have any additional comments, but I don't know how everyone else feels about this, but I have no intention on voting yes to this at the end, or in August 1st.
You really stressed the public portion of it earlier. So when we did the commission before, I don't know if he was involved, but how involved was the public? Did they engage in the process?
I wasn't part of the charter commission then, but
Let me just. He asked me last time about the last charter commission. When we were appointed, you mentioned, Dean, that the old charter goes back to the early 1900s. It was old, it was pieces of paper all over the place. And we tried to put that together in the charter. So we were given the duty to come up with a new charter. Then, while the charter commission was working, the idea of having a city manager came up. So we came up with 3 options for the voters. Keep the old charter as it was with hundreds of pieces of paper, the new charter that you're operating under now, or a city manager charter, which we developed at that time, which you used to put together the things you did. When we came down to thinking about that, how can we put 3 options on the ballot? We could end up with 34% of the people voting one particular way. And it really wouldn't be the majority of people. We could have a city manager with 34%, 33 and 33. So we said we can only put 2 things up for a vote. And that was leave the charter as it was, with hundreds of pieces of paper, or go to the charter that you're under now. As a compromise, the idea for those people who support a city manager, we said, let's promise to put that up for a vote. It was a year later or 2 years later, I can't remember exactly. The charter commission did not continue to exist until that happened. So we were out of commission actually for a year or 2 years, I can't remember when that was put on the ballot. So that's why, I mean, the people that just voted on the new charter, the one we have now. And we didn't have any time after that we went to the new charter to really begin to start talking about the city managers, I remember. There was no time for the charter commission to meet and look at any changes that should take place at that point. So that's why that's where.
Ron, was the public engaged in that process at all?
Yes, every meeting was public. This lady was there at many of our meetings.
because a charter commission has to have a certificate of appointment and it's subject to open meetings law, all of the work.
Yeah, I just wanted people to show up.
I don't know.
I mean, how many is here,
Yeah, how much public was there public? I know that I've seen surveys and survey results from that work done previously, but can you recall how many people actually participated or submitted surveys or anything?
I can't, it was different people, different times, and we did do a survey. through your electric bills. There was a survey there, and a lot of people heard that survey, I think you probably have that somewhere in the records.
Yeah. Was the discussion about city manager part of the work that you did, that was included in the open meetings?
Yeah, all the meetings were open.
So, do you recall public comment on the city manager?
Or I see that, it should have been on that side, you're asking me to remember something that would be, you know, I was secretary and I was writing those notes, but. I'm a few years older than I was then, and I'm not gonna.
But the city manager discussion was included in the entire discussion.
Absolutely, all of us, there were three subcommittees.
What was missing? What was missing, I think, in a lot of that.
I think what was missing is we probably should have met as a commission. I can't remember if we did, we have to check the dates, but I don't remember us meeting many times. Or meeting at all after this charter was passed. Before the other one.
Well, your city manager, there was essentially not an outreach effort to educate the public.
We did through the commission. They've been talking about that. We did through the commission, we brought people up from New York State, city county manager, the association there, came up and spoke, once. Different people filled up at different times. You probably could get a bigger report on how many people showed up right on our public radio. First, was that all of the
The point, only points that I would make is there really wasn't. Reach out to the public. The public hearings that we hold in public hearings, public law change. And what we get 60. But if we reach out different way, lot more people go to the way.
Public education.
And a lot. That's where the internet and other activities to reach hundreds of people. And at least educate what their citizens. Pretty much. I'm talking about really, so they bought some signs instead of like city manager. That was the extent of the outreach. Besides what the commission did, even city that. There was not a campaign that was conducted for this effort, and it still got what 35%, something like the vote. With people really not having much understanding, you know, maybe they did have more understanding than I think, but it was that wasn't bad for not having an education. But I understand the position you're making there. I just think, you know, when you say charter commission, I was thinking, thank you, did clarify. You know, the charter doesn't really apply. It's only a small section of the charter associated with, you know, whether it's a mayor or city manager.
Well, having a charter commission formed to, okay, talk about these are the proposed changes, and then the public and council as well, because people are gonna have to vote on it. Say, well, actually, I think this needs to be changed, and you can take that advice and go back and work on it again in full view of the public. It's the process that I have the problem with. And if a charter commission is formed with a better timeline, instead of let's vote on it at the end, or the first meeting in August, form a charter commission, do the process correctly, create a better timeline. I think that a commission that met between now and the end of 2025 and had something to put before the council and the voters in 2026, 2027, hire go recruiting for a city manager, so that by the time the next election comes, someone running for mayor knows exactly what they're running for. It gives plenty of time to do it right, do it well, recruit appropriately, and make the necessary changes in the government. And I think that would be better. I'm sorry that it didn't happen sooner. I'm sorry that a charter commission wasn't formed with the 2023 election cycle, to put it into place. But would this,
I can agree with a lot of your concerns, but I would think of the process a little bit differently. We've got a mayor coming in now. You can create a charter commission. And within a year, there really isn't a lot that charter commission has to do other than look at these, what's the role of the city manager? And if you're gonna have a role for the mayor, you don't even need the mayor, but you can put in a role for the mayor, which we did. And you could have that done in 3 months, 4 months, and then you can do a whole campaign on trying to educate the public to see whether or not the public is in favor of this. And then you can put it on the next election. You can vote for it and just don't put it in place until this person leaves, but you vote for it, everybody knows 2 years in, this is where the city wants to go. If that's what the public votes for. So there are a lot of options about how you can go about doing this. Rather than waiting 4 years before you go in that direction.
no, I'm not saying wait 4 years to go in that direction. I'm saying form a charter commission and then lay out a clearer timeline so that it doesn't interfere with the current election. Go ahead and form a charter commission. Don't wait for a new mayor to take office. I'm completely fine with that. And it just the process, go back to the process, do the process better and in full view of the public with full community involvement. Because this is not enough time. It's not.
I fully support a city manager. I think it's the next step and what we need to take, and sooner the better. I want to be crystal clear where I'm at and where I've been at this whole process, even going back to when I first campaigned in 2020. When I was asked by the mayor to be on the, I know it's been alluded to a few times, on this advisory committee, I thought it was a good way of going forward because the work's already been done. And I agreed with it in December when I was asked, and in the meetings. And sadly, through a lot of personal stuff, I ended up having to resign. I lost track of it and also going on paternity leave. So I'll own my piece of that puzzle. But I'm coming, I guess, to the same conclusions as Councilor Gibbs, very concerned of where we're at with the public. Very concerned. And I can't underestimate or underscore that. Of sharing what this means to the city and then explaining that before November. And I think there is time. I do agree with Councilor Wynette very strongly as well, that we can educate by November. So this is not a hard no in my eyes on that education piece. My hard no's keep coming back to the term of the mayor, which I mentioned before. And then also the biggest discussion we had at our last meeting with you all was section 6B, basically, and clearing up that language because it needs to be cleared up. Specifically, the manager conversation with counselors, and none of us here, I actually feel comfortable saying this and speaking for, because Jeff made the comment before of, we don't just want to supervise the managers at all, but we need to have the conversation that need to be cleared up. That was one of the biggest themes I got from our last meeting. Those are the 3 big things on my end that I'm seeing as trends, as themes to get this passed. The public piece is the one that is really giving me heartburn. And the other 2 pieces I think can be figured out, whether it's through a conversation, someone convinced me that I'm wrong, which I may be, or we have a conversation in negotiation.
I think that the language in 6B, if you read it from a perspective, from my perspective, and put it that way, I think that language supports everything that you were wanting it to. I do think that that language was interpreted in the past in a way that goes against my reading of it. So I agree that I think that some language changes for 6B may help people feel more comfortable about it. But I do think that the language that's currently in there is actually supportive of what your position is. I do think that, I'm actually fairly certain that previous administrations had interpreted it differently in terms of how it, in terms of the role of the council, which I think was a misreading of 6B. That's my opinion. I think it's shared with some of the other members of the committee. But language changes, I think, You know, it's fairly easy thing to do.
So once again, the public piece, just like Counselor Gibbs, just like Counselor Avery is a big thing, and you said it. Education for the public, I think that's a big thing, not just the public. I would love some added education on this whole process. So I'm open to hear from anybody about it. And 6B does need to fine tuning it, just, I mean, it's not 100%. It needs to have a little bit of things done. Timeframe. It's funny because I agree with everybody's thing with the whole time frame thing. Oh, it's a different. That's funny. But it needs to be looked at, and then done in favor, and we're all happy with it.
You know, be involved in the charter commission. But when you start talking about the changes, you need to go out and you need to have contact with a lot of the influential leaders in the neighborhoods, in the community about what this is about. So when somebody says, well, what is a city manager? You know, and why would be good? Somebody has those answers, and that information is made available to everybody, so that they know what they're looking for. So I think there's two aspects of that where it's community engagement is important.
And community involvement,
Yeah,
where they have the right to come to the microphone and give feedback and make comments. And their comments and suggestions can be taken back to the Charter Commission for evaluation, and it's got to be the whole process. Because when the public is not included in the process, that's when they come to public hearings and they are angry and they will take it out on the ballot. And I don't want to see this opportunity squandered. I think we're all saying the same thing, which is we're in favor of exploring it. I also think that we are all, well, I won't speak for Dave because I'm not sure where you are on that, but I think we are not comfortable, many of us are not comfortable with putting this in place while a new mayor is being elected right now. But I go back to what I say. I think a charter commission should be formed and have them go through the whole process properly in full view of the public. I don't see how this can be done well and properly by the last meeting of July. So you're talking just over 2 weeks now, because our next meeting is July 3rd. And we have one more meeting at the end of July when that local law will be introduced. And then we will have a public hearing August 1st, and it's got to go to the Board of Elections within like a day or two of that. I don't see this. It's being rushed. And that means mistakes will be made and things will be overlooked. I don't want to see that. I want to see it done well. I want to see it done right by the city and the taxpayers and the people who live here. But this is not the way.
I think the city manager is awesome. I'm totally 100% behind that. 100% behind the city manager.
Now, this is, because I don't know the process. So Elizabeth, you're not comfortable. You do not feel that the public input in the previous commission was sufficient
No,
to
I
go.
didn't say that.
So, but, I mean, you want that, because you feel the new commission is needed, because the work that was done in the previous commission is not sufficient to go forward.
No, I didn't say that either.
Well,
So,
Okay, so right now you're an advisory committee. You're not subject to
I
open meetings law.
understand.
And your meetings are not being in full view of the public, and the discussions you're having to change the city government are not done in public. The public isn't aware of it. They're not engaged. They can't watch you. They can't give you feedback.
Well,
My suggestion is, if you form a charter commission, which is then a certificate of appointment is filed with the city clerk's office. The meetings are advertised, they are public, the public comes, they can see what you're talking about, what changes you would like to make. They have an opportunity for feedback. We have opportunity for feedback in full view of the public. It becomes a community-wide engagement, and that becomes the guiding principles of how to change the government. That's missing.
Let me finish my thought, so that I was, getting this out of my tongue. So I've seen our work as primarily editorial over the previous commission's work, not, it's not, we're not changing, we haven't changed anything anywhere near the whole cloth from the work that was done by the previous public commission. If we were to go forward here, now, let's just take it as a given that it may not work for the November ballot. But if our work went forward and became a proposed local law, that the public would have that same opportunity to express itself in front of the council, as the council itself is debating that public law. And you could take 2, 3, 4 meetings with it, generating the public input. During those meetings, we would just simply be passing off the proposed local law to the council. The council would be generating that public input. Now, at some point, then the proposed local law would go to referendum. Now, maybe might miss November, and it might have to go into next year. But that public input could still happen without the establishment of an entire charter commission. Now, I believe that if we did start a new charter commission, they would essentially do the same work that we've just done, and that we are doing. That it would not. It would not be substantially different. And I think that the reservations you have about the public input can still happen in that debate over the local law that the council itself would have. Now, maybe I'm not reading the process right, and I'm not understanding the process right, but this is the way this is what I'm wondering.
So the local law is introduced at the end of July, the last meeting of July. When the local law is introduced, the public doesn't comment on it that night. So it's introduced as a law, and then on August 1st, there's a hearing, and that's when the public.
Well, I'm just saying that, let's take as a given that it's not gonna happen for November, right? That when the council takes on the local law, you can take as long as you want to vote yes on it. You can have several meetings, open meetings. You can have several regular council meetings where the local law is on the agenda, allowing people to comment on it. You could still use the advisory committee at that point to kick it back to the advisory committee. If you want, you would like us to make editorial changes based on conversations that the public has brought to the regular open public, to the regular public session at the council meetings. I mean, like I said, let's take as a given that it's not going to happen for November, right?
So every time that, if you introduce the local law and then you're going to make changes to it, you can't move forward with that local law, it must be changed and then reintroduced again. changed, reintroduced. I think it becomes a cumbersome process, and there's a lot of clerical work that goes behind it too, because it has to be published, it has to be made available. So I don't agree with that, because I think it would actually be a hindrance to making it a smoother process. I mean, if we're saying that, okay, we're gonna back off and not try to make this happen on a November ballot, and you're saying, yes, let's allow the public to engage in the process, then let's form a charter commission and do it right. And if that means a charter commission is formed and you have something, polished product with public engagement in a matter of months with a vote by date, or, you know, you've got it, great. This isn't it. And I'm not gonna stand behind this when the process is flawed.
So the process is flawed, is the outcome flawed? So
I don't agree with your document for a number of reasons, but I'm not part of your committee, and I'm not going to provide feedback that then the finger pointing begins. Well, you gave us this feedback, now you won't, you're not gonna support it. I mean, that's what I'm not gonna engage in. If we could have a charter commission and have a full process with the public, where then we could engage and say, well, these are the suggestions I have, and we could have a fuller conversation about what each of us thinks may need to actually change in order for this to be affordable and so on, because I am, from the people that I'm speaking to, we're not for that. These are the only like little bits and pieces of things that I'm hearing. It's got to be done right. And that way, if it's done right and done well, the public will buy in. If that is what we're saying that our objective is, we want the city to go to a city manager with a mayor in a minor role, and we're going to change the way we do our government. Then we want to make sure it's done right and done well, so that we don't have hiccups and problems. This is going to be a process where there are going to be mistakes, and I don't want to see that.
I mean, you've got 3 people right here that are saying that that they're not comfortable with portions of a document. Jacob and I both said 6 feet, we
We
can't.
haven't heard from Jennifer, what's your opinion?
And by the way, review that language again, because it was made clear based on the last round of feedback that we received from the council regarding engaging city managers. It was made, it's been made clear on the level of engagement and clarifying what's appropriate and what's not appropriate.
So 6B in the current document, current
Correct.
draft is updated, and that's what you were
Correct.
referring to as well, Kim?
Again, based on the feedback that we received last time, there was clarifying language made to the local law.
I apologize, I
I
did miss
didn't
that.
see it either,
That-
so,
that- It's an oversight on my.
yeah, mine too, so.
Just what I said before, I don't believe that this year's ballot is the year to do this, since we have a mayoral election. I think it should happen after that election has been resolved. And with the charter commission, like you said, that is the important thing, to be in full view of the public and to get their input. Because we've all known that they have a lot of input over the past few years. Everybody wants to get involved now that didn't want to get involved before, and we will definitely hear about it from them if they don't get their chance to have their say.
Did we just read this of that white paper that I was referring to, and municipal home rule law section 36 does spell out the various ways to form a charter commission, and it was what I was recalling. 1 by mayor appointment unilaterally, 1 by local law, so council can form a charter commission. And then 3rd, which I don't think anyone is in favor of, is by a voter initiated petition.
Well, we've been
There's
here.
also, sorry, one last piece. There's also well, at least in 2015, there's precedent and there's basis in statute for that commission to receive compensation. So there's also a budget.
We've been here now. But I think that we've made a decision. So.
Well, it's not, what I heard is, for you was that without a commission charter, you're a no-go. I heard that from everybody else. So, is that where everybody stands?
No, I'm fine with it.
Commission, charter commission, that she said.
Yeah, and for it not to even be on November's ballot. It's not the year to do it.
I'm okay with how it was done, mayor advisory. Was December. I thought it was going to be in sooner, so I'm surprised that we're in July talking about that. But I share all the concerns about the public input at this point, and I lean absolutely.
I think he's looking for an answer.
Yeah.
I'm gonna vote yes on this.
I'm a no,
It's-
Hal. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm a no.
You're a no.
So I want the charter commission. I'm not opposed to November at all. But it's just gonna depend. There's a whole list of things that gotta happen, the document, but I want a charter commission.
My suggestion would be that you go ahead and do it, part
How does that work?
Again, based on Dean's reference to that document, the charter commission can be created by the mayor. Appointed as such, it can be created by local law, by the council, or it can be created by a voter referendum.
I would like to see, a public, solicitation of members interested in being on a charter commission. That's what I would like to see. City residents, maybe even, one per ward. So that the entire city, because we've done committees like that for the city in the past. When we formed the Livable Community Committee, we had a representative from every ward. I think that would be a good way to go forward, have a member from every ward represented so that the entire city could be represented in that way. So I think maybe a public advertisement campaign, looking for people who would be interested. I know when we formed committees like this in the past, when we had more than one person interested, we'd like to see their resume, their qualifications, things like that, so we can make an informed decision when we appoint. That's what I would like to see. I think that the public would see that as an act of good faith, that they want to be engaged in the process, that we want them to be engaged, and we want every ward in the city to be represented. That would be my advice.
if that's what you want, go ahead and do it. I mean, it's not our decision.
Just saying, I'm just saying out in the public so that everybody knows where I stand.
I think it might be good to, get some input from Rod and Luke, Cypher, who chaired the last charter commission. And I don't know how they selected who was on that charter commission. But there might be some rationale for some expertise from some people on issues like this. I have no idea, but they might have something valuable in that too.
Once a commission's created, is there a finite amount of time that's written into the creation of it that it exists? And then is there a thing that says this will be the outcome by this date of the commission?
So that's TBD based on the local law or the mayor's appointment of that commission.
Okay, so it's
You
like
can create that.
those things can be
Yeah, it's
worked.
not necessarily a standing committee, you can create that.
So it sounds like if a commission was created, we could, hearing kind of some of the comments from counselors about the timeline, and when things could happen, when that it sounds like having that put into that commission would be important, and it would also ensure, in a sense, it being kind of future-proof to the next
That's right.
2 to 4 years of changing counselors, administration, and everything, and that at this moment in time with this council and this mayor, we are saying we want this to happen and we're gonna see this through, and that's kind of future-proofed through a commission.
Right, and as part of the document, you could put in preordained timelines, timeframes, dates, and give very specific directions. And I think that, like I said, if we want the public to have the ability to be involved in the process, I think These two, you're put the necessary documents. I would like to be. Well, any commission would have to be approved by us. So I'd like to, so just like when we appoint members to like management and departments where we get like a resume or we'll get some background information about the person. So before we say yes or no, we'll know some information about that person. Jennifer.
So I was wondering, would the members of the advisory committee, would they be able to participate in this? Because I'm looking in the room and I'm seeing Ward 4, Ward 3, and Ward 1. And I'm sorry, I don't. Okay.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that we have to. Right.
I mean, that would make it take care of half of it. If they would be interested in being a part of that charter commission.
So the next step forward then is for the council to, I guess, create a local law to.
We need interested members
Charter
before
commission.
we just
Go on.
create the charter, because we have to have people to put on the document. That's what we're saying. I would like to see a campaign soliciting interest from members of the community to be involved.
Or would Mayor Rosenquist be able to, if we had some other names for the other wards, would he be able to put up that appointment list for us to vote on?
Well, that's how it would have essentially come to us, but like if there were something public in the paper and in the news media that said, you know, city council, city, or, you know, even something on the city website, you know, currently looking for members who would be interested in a charter commission, or whatever way it wants to be worded, so that people would contact the mayor's office and we could, as a group, agree on who would be part of that charter commission. So just like when we vote on an appointment for an employee and we get their civil service what am I saying, qualifications of the resume, that's what we think.
There's a nice document you can get from the New York State Department of State on how to organize a city manager. You Google it, you'll find it. If you want.
How to organize a commission, you mean?
Get it for you, but it's.
You mean how to organize a commission?
How to set up a city charter commission.
Okay. Thanks, Rod.
And it's got the ways that he mentioned. On it. It's a little easier to read than reading the laws.
Where? It's the Department of State.
Department of State.
New York.
Yeah.
Yeah, never made it.
I just say, I
What's that?
Yes, sir. I would like to say thanks to Chris. When he first ran for mayor and got the nomination for the Democratic Party, he made a promise to me that he would bring city manager up during his term. I know it's been a busy time, Chris. If this had come up last year, it would have been perfect, but I'm listening to what I'm hearing from some of you about not doing it at the same time. As a clip, I want to thank you for putting it on the table. Sure.
I would just say there are two issues there. Immediately, when we start having discussions about this. One is, why do you have a mayor and city manager? I heard this from a lot of people that I was talking about. When I was talking to people about city manager and city before this commission. And they understand why you would have both. You know, so it's gonna be very important to have the people to articulate, you know, why that there's a role for the mayor. That even though it's a part-time position, there's a role for that individual that represents people in the city as well. And then the second one is that you touched on it just briefly. It's too expensive. Why do we have to pay $120,000 for, we're only paying our mayor, but it's $80,000 or whatever it is. And, and so that's gonna be an important thing to talk about. And I think my response to everybody I talk about is, hey, if the legislature in its wisdom decided to create, school superintendents are now going to be elected by the public, and their only requirement is that you're 18 years old and live in the city. People would go nuts. They said we cannot have that happen. We need somebody with professional expertise to run that school system. I think the city has changed so much over the last 40 years, 50 years, that we need a professional to run the city. And I think when you look at the city manager salaries from Ogdensburg, Watertown, Ithaca, Poughkeepsie, whatever around here, they're not outrageous salaries. They're not anywhere near to what a superintendent of school in Clinton County makes, which is an average of about 180-some thousand minus. If you want to add the benefits, it's close to $300,000 for a superintendent in a school system. So, but figuring out how do you frame that in some ways so people can grasp that issue? Those two issues are going to be pop up very soon in any conversation together, as they did with people. My brother-in-law, I right my face with it. But wait a minute, I didn't vote for him because I didn't know what the hell it was. I didn't vote for him, why didn't he do it? And, so that's the word, that's the education work that's going to be necessary to move this in the city, because people have a better grasp of why this would be a benefit to them. And the way the city operates. So.
Great, thanks for the feedback. We'll go back and figure out how. Thank you for being here. Yeah, thank you.